Perfect. You've been able to register. That's the most challenging thing that you're going to do in this Carb0n simulation. You've gotten signed on. Everything else is going to be fun from here on in. You should be looking at a screen now that looks like this, waiting for simulation to start. It says that there'll be 3 years in the simulation. A year is going to last for 20 minutes. There are 4 auctions in this simulation. Now I'm going to start the simulation. Now that you've been able to sign on, here's your company. What you're looking at is a company dashboard across the top and a navigation bar on the left-hand side. My company is Baja California Company. You likely picked a different company. It's year 1, January 1. Across the top of the dashboard, you see some limitations. Current capital. I have a capital budget of 119 million pesos. I also have the ability to borrow 92 million pesos. And I have a forecast short position. If the year ended right now, I would be short by 150,000 tons. Right? That's reflected further on down on the left-hand side of the screen, my long short position. Here we see that my 150,000 tons, that's the increment of the red bar. I'm short 150,000 tons. The red bar plus the blue bar is 1.18 million tons. That's how many tons that I'm going to emit at this year. The blue bar, that's the number of allowances that I was given for free. I am short 150,000 tons. That's my compliance obligation that I have to solve for by the end of year 1. In year 1, by the way, we have 4 auctions. Auction 1, 2, 3, and 4. After year 1 closes, we're going to have year 2, and then year 3. This red bar, which says paused at the top of the screen, as soon as I start the simulation, it's going to roll from right to left. And that's when it's going to start you're going to start getting anxious. But don't worry, there's plenty of time to do what you need to do. Okay, remember from our training, what's the first thing that we need to do? Before the market opens, before you think about the marketplace, the first thing we need to do is to abate. Don't wait to abate. Here is my marginal abatement control cost curve. I got to it by, on the left-hand side, clicking on abatement. And now I see that I have a marginal abatement control cost curve, which consists of a number of different technology choices. Hovering your mouse over each bar tells you what the technology is. As you move from left to right, you get more and more expensive technologies. You also see a legend in the upper left-hand side. Now, this chart's interesting to look at. It shows you that there's one technology that's likely going to save me money, and others that are going to cost me money. But let's not pay too much attention to it, and let's instead scroll down. We'll scroll down to this table. Each row in this table reflects a technology choice. You have the project name. You have how much money it's going to cost to implement, upfront capital cost. You have the annual emission reductions that you're going to get once the technology is implemented. You have the implementation time. How long does it take to build the technology? Let's skip to the right-hand side. You finally have the cost of the marginal cost of control. All right, what does it cost you to reduce every ton of emissions? All right, so let's figure out how do we make some smart choices. We have to make smart choices because we have a limited capital budget, and we can't undo abatements once we implement them. All right? So how do we make smart choices? Well, it doesn't really matter what the name of the technology is. So let's ignore this first column. But we should pay attention to the upfront capital cost. Each technology has a cost. What's my capital budget? My capital budget is 119 million pesos. This first technology is going to cost 55 million pesos. The second one is 186 million. I don't have enough money for that. All right, so I'm going to try to find a technology for which I have enough money and that can be implemented in the shortest amount of time possible. This technology is going to take 2 years. All the way in the bottom, we have technologies that are going to take 5 years to build. That means that I'm going to make a decision now, and I'm not going to get any benefit from this technology in terms of reducing emissions until 5 years have passed. These technologies at the bottom, make no sense. Why? Because this is a 3-year simulation. We're going to pay for this technology up front and never get any benefit. But look, there are some technologies that can be built in 1.5, 2, and here's one that takes 3/4 of a year to build. Okay, so here's a technology that looks pretty attractive. Energy efficiency lighting retrofit. It takes 3/4 of a year to build. I have enough money for it, 546,000 pesos, and I'm going to save 19 pesos per ton by implementing it. All right, so here's a great choice for me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to solve a portion of this shortfall, 150,000 tons, by implementing this technology. Click it once. It takes a second for it to implement. And then let's see what happens. I've implemented the technology, and look what happened to my shortfall. It went from 150,000 tons to 127,000 tons. So I solved a part of my shortfall. How do I know that? Because it says that by the end of this year, I will have reduced emissions by 23,720 tons. That's a great thing to do. All right. Now, here's a legend that tells me it takes 3/4 of a year to build. Once it's built, 3/4 of the year through, it begins operating. And then when it turns yellow or green here, I'm making money from it. Now, my cost of control has gone from 0 to 3 cents a ton. So already I'm now spending 3 cents a ton in order to manage my company. Hopefully, you'll have an opportunity to implement a technology that makes sense to you as well. All right? But right now, you're saying to yourself, how do I make a judgment about whether or not the technology makes sense relative to the marketplace? Well, let's go to the marketplace now. I'm going to scroll back up. And I'm going to now click on Allowance Auction. The auction has begun. This yellow bar says I've got 2 minutes and 5 seconds. 2 minutes and 3 seconds. The time is ticking by. What do we know about this auction? Well, we know that year 1 and year 2 allowances are being offered. Year 1, 8.6 million. Year 2, 6.7 million tons. All right. We also have an opportunity to place a bid. My shortfall is 126,000 tons. So what I think I want to do is I want to solve 1/2 of my shortfall. I'm going to slide the bar over to, say, 63,000 tons. I have a choice between year 1 and year 2. I'm going to put a unit price in. Now remember, my price floor in this auction is $100 per ton. The price ceiling is $300. What did I just do? I clicked on the gears. The gears, they give you a reminder. Reminders that are useful to pay attention to as time goes by if you have any questions. There's also a calculator here that you can use. All right? So let's go back. I've got 1 minute and 8 seconds to submit this bid. I'm going to pick a price that's more than $100. I'm pretty risk averse. I think most of this auction is likely to clear at $100, but I want to make sure that my bid gets accepted. I'm counting on you guys bidding lower than I'm going to bid, so I'm going to put a bid of, say, $123 in. I'm going to place my bid. My bid is now pending. Year 1, auction 1, I bid 123 pesos per ton for 63,000 tons. It's in progress. In 36 seconds, I'm going to find out how I did in the auction. Now, I could, since I've got a little bit more time, I'll also put in a bid for year 2 allowances, thinking that I'm going to be short in year 2. So how much should I buy? How about 10,000 tons? 10,000 tons. And I'm going to pick a lower price, let's say 101 pesos. Place my bid for year 2 allowances. Now I have year 1 and year 2 bids that are pending. Year 1 is pending at 123. Year 2 is pending at 101. And they're in progress. So let's see what happens to the auction when it closes. The auction has closed. Year 1 allowances, my bid for 63,000 tons. I won 63,000 tons. I paid 100 pesos per ton, all right? And my total price, 6.3 million. I also was successful at buying year 2 allowances. 10,000 tons is what I wanted to buy. I won 10,000 tons. I paid 100 pesos. So isn't that cool? Look, my bid was 123 for year 1 and 101 for year 2, but I paid 100 pesos. That's the sealed bid uniform price. Everybody else who participated in this auction also paid that price. It doesn't always happen that way, but I made sure that I was successful because I was able to put in a bid that was higher than the clearing price, and I relied upon others who were less risk averse than I was, and they were able to drive the price down to 100 pesos a ton collectively, and that's good because now my shortfall, which was 150,000 tons, and then it dropped to 126,000 tons, is now 63,000 tons because I bought some tons at the auction. Now, while this auction is auction 1 has closed, auction 2 is pending. Auction 2 will start in another minute and 29 seconds. So what I want to do is go to the exchange marketplace and see what's going on there. Interesting. And how do I get to the exchange market? On the left-hand side, I click on the exchange market. This is my navigation bar. In the exchange marketplace, I see a graph that's showing me a number of different transactions. The orange line, these are offsets that are transacting, rising steadily over the time period. The blue line, these are year 1 allowances that are trading, right? Interesting. So we see that offsets are trading at a discount at a lower price than the allowances. Why would allowances be trading at a higher price? Why would offsets be trading at a lower price? Well, they're trading at a lower price because offsets can only be used to satisfy 10% of my compliance obligation. I know that, you know that, the bots know that. So they value these offsets because they're more restricted at a lower price, right? Now let's look across the top of the screen. We see the best bid to buy is 98.35. The last transaction was 98.35. The best offer to sell is 96.35. All of this gives us information that's useful in terms of deciding what we want to do. Remember, year 1 started at January 1. It's ticked over to March 31st. April 1. The more time that goes by, the calendar pages come off, time goes by. I'm still short 63,900 tons, 902 tons. Scrolling down, here I see a vintage year 1 screen for allowances. Here I see the best bid to buy is 98.35. Pesos for 33,833 tons. The best offer to sell, 98.52 for 21,624 tons. The last trade over here, 98.35. The older trades, 98.17, 98.04, 98.35. Seems like the market is gradually rising. The oldest trade, 96.77. The newest trade, latest trade, 98.82. So I'm going to try to solve my shortfall right now. 63,902 is what I'm short. I have to buy year 1 allowances, or I could buy offsets. Let's buy allowances first. So I'm going to do a market order. I'm going to try to buy 63,000 flat, 63,000 tons, and see what happens. I'm going to submit my order, place my order. My shortfall has fallen. I was able to buy a quantity of allowances. Current orders, I have a buy order in for 63,000 tons. I paid 99.17. Looks like I was able to solve my entire shortfall in the time that I've been talking about this. 63,000 tons was my target. I paid 99.33. I'm still short by 902. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to see if I can solve that shortfall, maybe by buying some offsets. How do I do that? Let's go up to this trade activity table. It's now showing vintage year 1. Let's pick Mexico instead. Mexico, these are the offsets. Here I see that offsets are trading at a lower price than allowances, 97.02. Look, and that makes sense. Look what's going on the screen. You can see that offsets are trading at a lower price than allowances. Offsets, the orange line. Allowances, the blue line. So let me see if I can solve my shortfall by buying some offsets. While we've been talking, the next auction closed at 101.56 and $100 for year 3 allowances. Year 1 traded at 101.56. Year 3 traded at 100. Back to my offset order. I'm now going to click Buy, Market Order, Mexico for offsets. I'm going to buy 902 tons. And if I do that, I'm probably going to pay what's being offered here at 97.77 thereabouts. Place my order. My shortfall has fallen from 902 to 0, so I'm now exactly where I want to be in terms of end of the year, solving my shortfall. I see that I was able to buy offsets at 902 tons at 97.77 pesos. So now my shortfall is absolutely 0. My long position is also 0. While we're doing this, why don't I put in a bid to buy? Let's go back to the allowances. Put in a bid to buy allowances. Rather than a market order, I'm going to pick a limit order. And that allows me to specify a price. I don't want to pay $99.30, so I'm going to put in a price in of $99.28. And for 1,000 tons, I see the best offer to sell is $99.30. Submit that, place the order. Now my order's pending. And it was filled. I was able to buy at a price actually lower than I wanted to pay, so I'm happy about that, $99.28. And now I'm 1,000 tons long. Now we're going to go through the OTC marketplace. Here we're going to trade with each other. How do we do that? On the left-hand side, click on the OTC market. Remember, in the Carb0n Sim program, sellers can post offers to sell. Buyers can accept or reject those offers. How do I find somebody who's willing to buy the allowances that I'm willing to sell? I'm 1,000 tons long. I'd like to find somebody who is willing to buy these tons from me. All right, I see the last trade cleared at 98.28. Right? So I'm going to speak up and say, I have 1,000 tons of year one allowances. I would like to sell them. I will sell them at a premium to the market because I think the market's going to go higher. I'll sell them at $100 per ton. Who's willing to buy them from me? I see that Aaron is registered. I'm going to ask Aaron if he's willing to buy these tons from me. I'm going to post an offer to Aaron at 100 pesos a ton. I'll say, Aaron, I have 1,000 tons available. I'll sell them to you for 100 pesos. Will you accept them? Maybe he says yes. Maybe he says no. You know what? Prices. Aaron said, he says, you know what? I think the price $100 is too expensive. I'll buy them for 99. Aaron, 99 is not a good price for me. I'm not willing to transact at that. I think prices are going to go higher. I'm going to stick to 101. In fact, unless you say yes right now, I'm going to increase my price to 101. Are you good for 100, Aaron? Okay. Aaron said yes. So I'm going to show him my offer to sell by clicking send the offer. Right now, I see that I've extended an offer to Aaron, year one allowances for 100 pesos per ton for 1,000 tons. So I'm going to switch to Aaron's screen now and take a look at what he's got. On Aaron's screen, he now sees an offer from Unit 1, Josh, year one allowances, offered at 100 pesos for 1,000 tons. So Aaron's going to accept it right now. Offer accepted. Aaron's shortfall is now diminished by 1,000 tons, and he's happy. He was able to buy these tons from me at 100 pesos. And look, here's the last trade that went off, 100 pesos per ton. That's how do you participate in the OTC market. It's not very efficient. It takes time to negotiate. It can be fun, though, and you have to use your voice. You have to talk to others as well. Perfect. So that's how we get through the auction. We went through the abatement process. We went through the auction, and we did an OTC trade. You figured out what your shortfall was. Your emissions were greater than your allocation. You resolved that shortfall, hopefully, by putting on abatements, technologies, by adjusting your operations, by participating in one or more of the 4 different auctions, by participating in the exchange, buying and selling in the exchange. Maybe you did an OTC trade, an over-the-counter trade. Let's figure out how we did as a group. We were 240 some odd entities, humans and bots, participating in this cap and trade program at the end of year 1. Here's what happened. The cap, 355 million tons. The government sold 46 million tons. of allowances, 46.6 million tons. The government collected 5.7 billion pesos. What's the government going to do with this revenue? What do you think they should do? Maybe they should make these monies available to companies that are willing to put in additional controls or more insulation, which would reduce their energy usage. Maybe they want to put in more public transit options to reduce the amount of cars that are on the road. But this is the decision that should be made before you start the cap and trade program. What are you going to do with the revenues that are available? The allowances average price was $123.55. Compare that to the offset price. Average offset price was $92.63. Why is there a difference between offset prices and allowance prices? Well, again, recall that offsets can be used to satisfy only 10% of your compliance obligation. Abatements undertaken, you and your fellow humans and bots reduced emissions in year one by 2.9 million tons through the technologies that you selected. You made the air better by 2.9 million tons. That's a sign of a system that's working. You also, however, provided a marketplace for 9.2, almost 9.3 million tons of offsets that were made available. So the abatements plus the offsets equal 12.2 million tons of emissions that were reduced between the abatements and the offsets. That's a good thing. Emissions were reduced by 12.2 million tons. Now let's take a look at the companies that failed to comply. 0 units were not in compliance, and $0 in penalties were, 0 pesos in penalties were paid. That's a sign of a system that's working, of companies that understand what their opportunities are and their obligations and what the penalties are. So here's the end of year one. That's all good. Now that we know what we did as a group, let's take a look at how you did individually by clicking on the leaderboard on the left-hand side. Here we're going to rank the companies from top to bottom, who did the best. Let's skip the first one because that's just a bank. The bank's doesn't matter. All right, the bank's doesn't have a compliance obligation. But Aaron, he's the top performer. He ended up in the top position with an overall marginal cost of compliance of $9.55. And then I ended up below Aaron with a marginal cost of control of $11.53. And then you can scroll down. Maybe you'll see your company and how you did below that. Everybody who's on this screen ended up in compliance. So congratulations for achieving that objective. If you weren't in compliance, you'd be looking at a penalty over here. You'd see a penalty price, right? But nobody's paid a penalty over here. Now we're ready to begin year two.